Okay, it's a huge chus to sit together and to learn. It's always special anytime that there's something that's out of school, because it means that it's something that you're choosing of your own accord. And that's really what Yiddishkeit is supposed to be. Avodas Hashem is supposed to be something that we are doing because we want to do it. We're learning with some of our Hasmon girls earlier in this week, this idea of the importance of it coming really from the heart. And so choosing to come to a program that's optional is really where the good stuff is. That's something very special. I apologize, whoever's behind the pillar. I can't say, oh, hello. Okay. I'm sorry. It's just the way that shul is set up. So it's extra special, and it brings a special nachas ruach to Hashem. And the payoff for the investment of investing in such a way is all the more special. So should all be very proud that we have the privilege of being part of this, and thank you to whoever is arranging and making all this possible. I wanted to speak a little bit about Chodesh Elul. We're approaching halfway through Chodesh Elul. We're a week away, but it's still in the beginning. And I wanted to talk about some very crucial ideas with regard to how to think about these days, how to think about this time period, and hopefully a little bit of a deeper way that can provide us a perspective that hopefully can guide our thinking, guide our feeling, guide our acting, our speaking, and how to understand this time period that we find ourselves in. So let's take a look together at the first source. The first source, as it says, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Chav Ches, 128. And the Kitzur is quoting the Tur, which is a more primary halachic text that himself is quoting from the Tana de Belio, which is Tanaic, is from Chazal. And he writes, Rosh Chodesh Elul ad achar Yom Kippurim heim yemei Ratzon. From Rosh Chodesh Elul until after Yom Kippur, those 40 days, are called Yemei Ratzon, are called days of desire, of yearning, of longing, Yemei Ratzon. We're going to discuss what that means in a minute. Now, of course, every single day is a fine day for tshuva. Every minute of a person's life is the opportunity to stop and to wake up and to recognize, like the Rambam explains when he speaks about the mitzvah of shofar, Uru Yushenim Mishinaschem, what it means to wake up, to recognize that the way that I've been living is not a way that I want to continue to live. I want to change. I want to grow. I want to move forward. That's the primary energy that compels us, that carries our lives, and not just our lives as people, but the whole entire creation. The whole creation is saturated with this energy like a river that's carrying it along, closer and closer to Hashem, closer and closer to fixing, closer and closer to health. So at any given moment, a person can channel that, and every day is a fine day, like he says. Hashem is always ready to receive a person that returns to him a love, belief, shalom, with a whole heart. Mikal makam, however, yamim elum muvcharim yoser umzumanim l'tshuva. But these days, there's something really specifically special about them when it comes to this idea of tshuva. However, we want to translate for now tshuva, return, recalibration, refocus, reconnecting. Because they are days of abundant compassion, abundant mercy. And again, v'yimei ratzon, just like we would refer to a auspicious time, we would call it te hasha'azois shas rachamim ve'es ratzon milfanecha. Right? That's an auspicious time. It's called an es ratzon. So the whole Elul, with the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, are one gigantic es ratzon. The whole time is an auspicious time. The capacity that a person has to do tshuva during these days is greater, at least in some significant sense, than all the other days of the year. And now the Kitzur brings us into the source for this. How do we know? Where do we learn this idea that Chodesh Elul is a time for tshuva? Where do we find such a thing? So he brings us all the way back to the first time that we start to understand something special happening during this period of the year. And he explains, It was on Rosh Chodesh Elul that Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain after having smashed the first luchos that were written with the finger of Hashem after the Chet HaEgel, when the whole nation rejects the relationship that Hashem is trying to offer them. B'ni b'chayri Yisrael, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu considers this relationship to be so unique and so special and so deep and so real. And imagine the hurt and the pain and the rejection, kiviyachol, as it were, so to speak, that Hashem feels when right after Har Sinai, they hit a few bumps and Am Yisrael are already running off looking for another chassan. Just like that. Making Hashem wonder, chas v'shalom, whether Klal Yisrael really intended to build a relationship with him, or, any chassan would do. Ki'ilu, it wasn't something personal. And so Hashem reacts with frustration and with pain. And Hashem says, well, I guess this is not going to work out. And maybe Moshe Rabbeinu, I'll build you into a nation, and we'll carry on from there. But it's not going to work between me, says Hashem, and you, the nation of Am Yisrael. And Moshe Rabbeinu, after smashing the luchos with all of what the depth of what that is, goes back up the mountain, Rosh Chodesh Elul, and he stays there for 40 days. And those 40 days, the pasuk tells us, Moshe Rabbeinu was oimid beperetz. He stands in the breach, and he holds Hashem's hand like a good shadchan, and he holds Am Yisrael's hand, and he tries to find a way to bring the two together, to convince HaKadosh Baruch Hu that this relationship is salvageable, that there's more going on here than meets the eye, that it's just a miscommunication, it's a misunderstanding. And finally, he succeeds on Yom Kippur when HaKadosh Baruch Hu announces, and we say this throughout the Yom Kippur liturgy, Salachti kidvarecha. Hashem finally announces, he says, okay, we're going to start again. We're going to give this relationship another try. V'yarad ba'asar b'tishrei. So Moshe Rabbeinu stayed there 40 days, and he comes down on the 10th of Tishrei, Sha'aya, Az Gemar Kapara, that of course is Yom Kippur, when the atonement process was completed. Says the Kitzer, Umin Az, from that time period, Hukdushu Yamim Elu Liyamei Ratzon. It was established on a metaphysical level that the spiritual energy that would again reveal itself each and every year, which is really just 1 year repeating itself again and again and again. It's coded with the same spiritual energy. These 40 days, each and every subsequent year, are going to be days that are filled with Rachamim and Ratzon. The Yom Asiri b'Tishrei is the Yom Kippur. And that 10th day of Tishrei, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second luchos, which are luchos of reconciliation, which are luchos that Moshe Rabbeinu built, which are not perfect luchos, but are even more perfect in the sense that they're stronger than the luchos that are just from God, because they're luchos of struggle. They're luchos just like any relationship, where there are bumps in the road and a person works on it. Instead of running away, the relationship gets deeper. There's a lesson that's learned on the part of both parties, where they're able to come to a deeper understanding of one another. And that's Yom Kippur. But what's this idea, just going back to these bold letters, these bold words here, Yemei Ratzon? So we said before, it's an Eis Ratzon, and we use this terminology in many other contexts, right? A person goes, Bez Hashem, to a wedding, should be zocheh to participate in many wonderful simchas. And everybody knows the time of the chuppah is an Eis Ratzon for davening, right? There are certain time periods that, this is an Eis Ratzon. Got to utilize these moments. They're not just regular moments. Something's happening here. And so in that context, again, we're just applying that idea. The whole Elul is an Eis Ratzon, Yemei Ratzon. But the tzaddikim say that there's something much deeper than this. The tzaddikim teach that according to the Manda Amar, according to the opinion in the Gemara, and there are two opinions, but according to the opinion in the Gemara that says that the world was created on Chaf Hei Elul, on the 25th day of Elul, and then culminated on Aleph Tishrei, because that's the birth of Adam Rishon. When we say Hayoim Haras Olam on Rosh Hashanah, today is the birthday of the world, but it was really the 6th day, right? It was really the birthday of the human being, but that's the crowning jewel, and creation was culminated and finished. And that's why, fascinatingly enough, the Zohar HaKadosh in Tikkunei Zohar, which is a very incredibly lofty section of the Zohar, the Tikkunei Zohar says that the very first word in the Torah, which spells Bereshis, when you read it straight, actually contains the same letters as Aleph B'Tishrei. It's the same letters as Bereshis. So that's a very, very strong support for the Manda Amar that says that the world was created on the first day of Tishrei, because that's literally the word Bereshis. So, assuming that that's the case, obviously the other Manda Amar holds B'Nisan Nivra Olam, that the world was created in Nisan, and the Sfarim are filled with many different, very deep ideas as to how to reconcile these two opinions, because it couldn't have been both, right? But the Tzaddikim explain that if the world itself, B'Poyal, in actuality was created in the beginning of Tishrei, so it turns out that the whole month of Elul, vis-a-vis the coming year, actually contains the motivation, the desire that Hashem had to create the world before the world is created. And this is a deeper understanding of what it means, Yemei Ratzon. It means that these days are filled with the intention of HaKadosh Baruch Hu deciding to then subsequently go ahead and create the world. And this happens year after year anew, even though, and it's a strange thing, even though Elul is ostensibly also the last month of the actual previous year, right? So it's still a part of the previous year. But at the same time, they're doing some construction up there. It's we don't keeping a golem up there or anything. It's just doing construction, right? At the same time, Elul is the motivating energy that's filled with Hashem's vision, filled with Hashem's yearning, desire, what He wants from this world, that's then going to emerge in the creation of the world fresh, anew, on Rosh Hashanah. And so this is a very, I think, a slightly deeper understanding of what Yemei Ratzon. It's not just Stam, it's an Eis Ratzon, it's a time to do tshuva because, etc. It means that we are right now immersed in the clarity of Hashem's desire for a world that's filled with His presence, which is the whole purpose of creation, that we, you and I, should be in this place which appears to be devoid of godliness, and that we should be the conduits to reveal Him in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions, in our way of perceiving the world, in our way of interacting with physicality, so that we should identify with our neshamas, and in so doing to find the neshama in the world. So that Hashem's presence becomes revealed, Ta'ir Eretz Mechvaydecha, so the whole entire earth should be saturated and illuminated with Hashem's presence. Well, if this is the time period that's filled with the energy of what Hashem wants, then it's also a time period where before we engage with the new year that we're standing on the threshold of, we have to start to consider what we want. Because we're both sharing this interesting space. We're about to enter into a new year. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, again, is clarifying His motivation, what He's looking to get, so to speak, out of another year of this human and physical experiment. And we're also about to enter into a new year. Yemei Ratzon means that we are also invited to consider, what is it that we want? And the answer, of course, as the Gemara in Brachas tells us, Ritzonenu lasos ritzonecha. In the deepest recesses of the Jewish heart is a deep-seated desire to do exactly what Hashem desires. Our desire is to meet yours, to mirror yours, Hashem. But it doesn't mean that Hashem wants to do what He wants to do, and we also want to do what Hashem wants to do. It's deeper than that. It means that Hashem, if you're offering the possibility of us partnering with you, and you're going to do one part of it, offering yourself, and we're supposed to do the other part of it, then we want to be a part of this. We want to be a part of manifesting your dream, your vision. And the Kotzker Rebbe said, so where do you find Hashem? Where does a person discover Hashem? That the whole purpose of the creation of the world is that a person should discover Hashem. And of course the Kotzker answers, wherever you let Him in. So Hashem is offering Himself. And our desire is to partner with Him, which is the purpose of our existence and the essential reason that the whole Torah exists. is to train us and to give us a series of guidelines as to how to engage with physicality in a deeper way. That's the whole thing. It's not a system of rituals or laws or whatever else. It's an immersive spiritual training program. So that before we eat, we stop and remember, there's something deeper to eating. It's not just, cooking, you put it down our throat. We stop for a second. What we think about, what we care about, what makes us happy, what makes us sad, what we want out of life. All of this is guided by a Yiddishkeit that gives us an opportunity to let Hashem into our lives. And in that sense, Ritzoneinu Hashem, what we want is really to do what you want. Lasis Ritzonecha, that we should be partners with you. And if you take a look in the second source, this is really crucial. Because the Gemara in Saita says, Amar Rav Chizda ve'itema Mar Ukva. Rav Chizda, some people say it was Mar Ukva, said the following, Kol Adam sheyesh by gasus ruach. Whoever is a, let's say, egoic person, like a person with strong sense of self, a strong ego, with their own motivations, focused on their own individuality, focused in a negative sense, meaning a person who spends the whole time thinking about themselves and their own aims, their own goals in life. Amra Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem says, well, Ein ani v'hu yichaylen lidar ba'olam. I can't be in the place where that person's already filling the place, because there's no space for me, Hashem says. Ein ani v'hu yichaylen lidar. It's going to be either me or you. Can't be both. Because Hashem is present, again, where we let Him in. And in order to let Hashem into our lives, we have to make space. And the Mekubalim explain, if you take a look at this box over here, that there are either of two ways of existing. There's either the existing of Ani, which is I, like my own identity, or the possibility of flipping the letters of Ani around to spell Ayin. Ayin means nothingness. It means that I don't have an Ani other than my identification with the spark of divinity inside of me that has its own motivation. And that's why I'm here. I'm a shliach. I don't have my own motivation. It means I'm a messenger. I'm a part of something so much bigger. I don't just happen to be hanging out in this place we call planet Earth and just, carrying on my life. The whole point of planet Earth is that we should be here, but for Him, Ayin. And there's a way of using all of my ani, meaning all of my life, with my considerations and my talents and abilities and the people that we meet and the experiences that we have and the circumstances that we face and the ambitions that we dream of, etc., as a means to further reveal the ayin, to further reveal Hashem's presence in a way that's unique to us. But it's for Him. It's Ritzoneinu lasis Ritzonecha. And when a person does that, the Gemara in Saita continues, Ve'ez dako shval ruach, it's a pasuk, referring to the daka, the people who are lowly, ushval ruach, and the people who make themselves very humble. Rav Huna v'Rav Chizda. And the Gemara brings a machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Chizda. Chad Amar, one of them says, Iti daka. Hashem says, a lowly person, meaning a person who gets themselves out of the way and genuinely wants that they should do what they were sent to this world to do, which is to be a little wick for the flame of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and not just to be a wick in and of ourselves without realizing that I'm supposed to be a vessel for something else, a merkava for the Shekhinah, that my whole life is meant to be a vessel for something so much bigger, so much deeper, something so much more profound than my own little silly ideas. But to be part of a cosmic drama, an epic journey that involves all of humanity from the beginning all the way to the very end. So Hashem says, such a person, iti daka. I lift that person up to me, says Hashem. And V'chad Amar, the other one says, no, ani es daka. I go down to the life of such a person. It's very, very deep. Like, which one is it? it ends up being the same, essentially, because at the end of the day, that person ends up with Hashem, and Hashem ends up with that person. Either Hashem brings that person up, or Hashem comes down into that person's life. And the Gemara says, it makes sense that really Hashem goes down to such a person, because that's what we see famously about Har Sinai, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu went down to the lowly mountain, and Hashem didn't take the lowly mountain of Har Sinai and bring it up to him. Hashem al Har Sinai. So you find the model, the concept, the framework of Hashem going down to those who are humble. But that's the ikr. The ikr is to recognize, what is my desire as I stand on the threshold of this year? What do I want? What is the want that underlies all of the other things that I want? Which is okay to want. We're supposed to be people, right, who have identities and who have very individualistic identities. Because each of us are different, and that's by design. The same that each one of us has a different face, our neshamas are completely different. And that's how it's got to be. Because each and every individual, through the nature of their own unique neshama, is revealing another aspect of the Shekhinah in her own unique way. And that's how it needs to be. But there's a way of utilizing our own unique wick to channel down the flame of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way, again, that no other wick can channel it, but in such a sense that the wick is not there just for itself. It has a greater purpose. That's called Torah and mitzvahs. It has a greater purpose. And again, we're clarifying that the greater purpose of Torah and mitzvahs is not to get olam haba in the next world. Maybe that's also good, you got a little bonus, but that's not the point. That's not what we're doing this for. We're doing this because this is a shlichus, this is a mission. The whole life is a mission. And as we stand prior to crossing over the threshold of a new year in the Yemei HaRatzon, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu's intention is revitalized and is revealed once more in clarity. And the shofar wakes us up to recognize these are special days. These are days that are opportune for a person to actually start to think more deeply. What do I want out of the coming year? What is my motivation in life? Like, what is it that I actually want, and why? Then a person begins also to utilize the Yemei Ratzon to start to think for themselves as well. How can I be more conscious of this in the coming year? How can I try to bring Hashem into my life a little bit more? Not for me, but so that I can play my tiny role in this gigantic, epic process of all of human history, leading, I would say, really hurtling toward the coming of Mashiach. That I can play my part. That I can do what I was sent down to this world to do, and nothing else, just this. So if you take a look at the next source, this is not a Gemara in Saita, actually. It is Perek Kuf in Tehillim, in Mizmor L'Saita, Perek Kuf. And we say over there what we say in Shachris, Du'u ki Hashem hu Elokim. A person should know that Hashem is, and we translate this as Hashem is our God, but of course it means much deeper. Elokim is Gematria HaTeva. So nature is wrapped up into the word Elokim. That means that what we encounter in the world looks oftentimes just like a natural world, an ordinary world. It conceals Hashem. Elokim is the midah of gevura, concealment, harsh judgment, shielding, covering and shutting away godliness. And we know, okay, maybe Hashem is running the world somewhere else. But du'u ki Hashem hu Elokim means the whole nature itself is miraculous in such a way that if a person develops their consciousness, the most natural, normal, regular things in life can be experienced as the greatest revelations of godliness that we could possibly begin to imagine. Every breath we take, every person that we're privileged to speak to, everything that we're able to do, this is the secret of the Bracha of Asher Yatzar. Even the most basic things are miracles, umafli lasais, what a pella, what a wonder, like we say in Moedim. Va'al nisecha Right? Your nisim, your miracles that are with us at all times. Erev, v'avoiker, v'tzaharayim. So that's what we mean. Du'uki Hashem hu elikim. Yudke vavke is divinity, just clear godliness, above time, beyond space. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, haya v'yeh, who's present in every particle of physicality, here, right now, in this room. The fact that there is a room, the fact that any of this exists. Du'uki Hashem hu elikim. And when a person reaches that madrega, we recognize hu asanu v'loy anachnu. Now, this is important. There is a kri and a ksiv. Sometimes you find in psukim where the pasuk is written one way, with certain letters that are written like in the text, but we read the letters a completely different way. Here is a rare case where both the kri and the ksiv, both the way that the pasuk is actually written, as well as the way that we pronounce it, sound the same. But the words are different and they mean different things. Hu asanu v'loy anachnu with an aleph means he created us and not we. We didn't create us, he created us. But that's the way it's written. The intention of the way that it's read, and therefore the way that you'll find this pasuk translated, if you look it up and it's translated to Tehillim or in the Siddur, means hu asanu, he created us, and the word loy here has a vav, not an aleph, v'loy anachnu, and we are his. Not he created us and not we. We didn't make ourselves, which has meaning, but it's so much deeper. Hu asanu, he created us, v'loy anachnu, and we are his. Amai, his nation, v'tsoin marisai, and the sheep that he shepherds, the sheep that he guides. Now the Sfas Emes says, take a look at the next source. He quotes from his grandfather, the Chidushei Harim. He's one of the primary students of the Kotzker Rebbe. And he quotes, Adoni Avi Zekeni, my grandfather, Moiri V'Rabbi, my teacher and my master. Zal Zechron Livracha. Pirish al Chodesh Elul would offer the following understanding of what the month of Elul is. The energy that the month of Elul encapsulates, what it offers us. And he says, well, if you look back at the Kri and the Ksiv, and you take away the Vav, and you look at the actual letters of Loi and Loi, Lamed, Aleph, of Loi Anachim, we did not create ourselves, and the Lamed Vav of we are his, actually spells the word Elul. Loi Anachnu, we are not. Loi Anachnu, we are his. Those two words, the loy with an aleph and the loy with the vav, you have to scramble the letters a little bit, spells Elul. Says the Chidushei Harim, this is what Elul is all about, these two energies. Kri uksiv b'mizmah l'sayda. These are the two different versions of this pasuk in Mizmah l'sayda. Pirish hadavar. And the Chidushei Harim says, it's a Kri and a ksiv, and it sounds like it's either or. Says the Chidushei Harim, no, hakol aleph, it's a teaching, it's both. Shekifi ma sheloy anachnu, the more that we get ourselves out of the way, then loy anachnu. Then we make room for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then we can devote our lives to him. And in these Yemei HaRatzon, these days of intention where HaKadosh Baruch Hu renews the revelation of his yearning for a world again that's filled with him, that's filled with his presence, that's filled with his love and compassion, that's filled with his goodwill, teva hatov lehetiv, his desire ta'olam chesed yibana, to build a world that's filled with kindness. That can actually be the manifested vision of the Nevi'im, Yeshayahu, Habakkuk, Yoel, all the different Nevi'im, who describe a world of really, really deep universal peace and universal consciousness. Where lo yisa goy al goy cherev, when there's no more war. And it doesn't just mean one nation won't battle another nation. There won't be any fighting between people anymore. No hatred, no separation. The whole human family reconstituted. Instead of pointing fingers at each other, we join arms and we point together up. We point in. We point to the deeper reality that all of us are here to serve as vessels for, as one singular unit. This is the Ratzon of Hashem. This is what He wants. And we have the opportunity in these days to review our Ratzon and to think very deeply, what is it? What do I want? Hashem, I want to be a part of your wanting. I recognize that what you want is really what I want. Because like any good father or mother, their desire for their kid isn't their own desire. They want something for their kid because really, if the kid was mature enough, that's what the kid would want because it's best for them. And sometimes the kid can't really understand it. But in this month, we wake up to the realization that I don't just happen to think that I want what Hashem wants because I'm forced into wanting it, and what can you do? He's all powerful, and I'm just a puny little, bundle of flesh and bone. It's deeper. It's the realization that God's will is already my will, because all He wants is for us to live the Chaim Tovim, the good life, the big life, the life that's saturated with meaning and purpose, the life that makes living worthwhile, the life that connects me to every generation that came before me, all the way back to Avraham Avinu, and every generation that comes after me, which I don't believe there will be that many more generations, Be'ez Hashem, until Mashiach comes. That's a life. That's a big life. That's a deep life. That's a life of greatness. And that's what I want, Gesundheit. That's what all of us want. And that's what He wants. So beautiful. I'm down. I'm in. We'll do this together. Where is God? Wherever you let Him in. Okay, so v'loi anachnu, I'll get my little self out of the way, and v'loi anachnu, I open my life to something deeper. This is tshuva. V'shavta, the pasuk says, and you shall return ad Hashem Elokecha. Very important pasuk. Because the pasuk doesn't say you shall take a look at all the things that you're doing wrong and fix them, and work on Lashon Hara, and work on whatever other areas a person is working on in their spiritual growth. It says, yeah, of course we're working on the things that we're working on. But that's not the point. The point is, says Hashem, the reason that I would like for a person to live a more refined existence is v'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha, so that you can live with Hashem again. You can walk with Hashem again. That a person can get all the blockages out of the way so that the light of the divine is alive in their heart and their soul and their life. And again, to clarify, not for that person alone, but so that they can be the beacon of light that they were meant to be for the world. So that we can be the Mamleches Kohanim B'Goy Kadosh, as the Sepharno explains, that the Jewish nation was chosen to be the priests of the world. So that we could service the world, guide the world, teach the world. Ki mitzion teitzei soira. That from there should come Hora'ah, guidance to all the nations. And this is what it's supposed to be a Jew, to be a Yid. It's not a contemporary religious culture with certain framework for behavior and things that we try to do and things that we stay away from. It's something much bigger, much, much bigger. It's a historic mission that Elul gives us the ability to reconnect with. Turn the page over. We'll just do this piece very quickly. Says Reb Nosson of Breslov, Schusei Aganaleinu, Rabbi Nachman's primary disciple. Ki ikra bria hoyse b'shvil hatachlis hazeh. The whole purpose for creation, the Yemei Ratzon, the whole purpose, the motivation was shetachzer kol habriya, that after having been created, the whole world could return to its primordial state, v'siyeh nechleles be'ein sof, so that it itself would be seen as being saturated with and subsumed by the light of the Creator Himself. This is why anything was created, so that the conscious beings, the masters of the world, which are the human beings, would be able to live life in such a way where they don't see Hashem as hidden. They're swimming in Him. There is no distinction between Creator and creation. There's the recognition that the Spirit of the Creator is here, and we can live life in that way. And we don't just connect to Hashem when we're davening, we're thinking about Him. Every single split second is another reminder, is another encounter with the Spirit of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in creation. That was the point. The Yachzru l'Shar Shana Rishon, that everything would go back to its heavenly root. That's called tshuva, to return to that higher state. Ki Hashem Yisbarach Himsi Kalabriya Me'ayin Liyesh, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought all of creation from nothingness into at least an experience of somethingness, which is the way that we live. B'shvil Yisrael Am Kadosh, so that there would be a holy nation, a nation of priests, a nation of Kohanim, so that through their own hyper consciousness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which would be strengthened through their very, very deep engagement and heartfelt engagement with Torah and mitzvahs, but in a real way that would remind them and train them. So just like Kohanim have more mitzvahs than the rest of the nation, we have more mitzvahs than the rest of humanity. They have 7 mitzvahs, we have 613. But it's just because we're the Kohanim. Because we need more mitzvahs, because we're supposed to be hyper conscious. It's supposed to make us more spiritual, really spiritual people, but for real. Not like, hippies living on a mountain, like not but real spiritual. People who can live in a physical world with husbands and wives and children and parnasa and engage with the physical reality with a consciousness that's expansive, like endlessly expansive. So that through this nation, so that through this nation, Yalu Kol Anavram, we could lift up everything, every human being in the world, every animal in the world, every plant in the world, every rock in the world, all of existence. V'yachzra kol l'sharshe arishan, so that everything can be experienced as a revelation of Hashem's presence. V'yuchzra kol be'ein sof, and everything will go back to that place. And this is the aspect, and this is very deep. The pasuk in Bereshis tells us right before the creation of man that all the plants of the field before they had sprouted on the earth, and all the grass of the field, again before it had grown, because the human being was not there to work the ground. Say Chazal, what does it mean? La'avodas ha'adama, ein avoda ela tefillah. There was no person to pray for rain. So Chazal say that all the grass had grown, but it didn't come beyond the surface until Adam Rishon davened for it. What's the depth of that? With this, we'll finish last 2-3 minutes. Listen carefully, because this is very, 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 very deep. Ki be'emes, because in truth, tzmichas v'gidol kol hatzmachim sheba'olam, the fact that plants grow in this world, like we were saying before, it seems like it's natural, but it's not natural at all. It's the most wondrous thing ever. Because this is what we see. The wonders of the Creator, that Hashem is constantly doing miracles all the time. And we think it's normal and natural because this is what's expected, but it's not expected. It's just expected because we've gotten used to the fact that this is ordinarily how things go. But it's shockingly unexpected and it's anti-logic. You take one tiny little seed and you put it down in the ground and you cover it over, that from this tiny little seed, that from this is growing stalks of wheat, corn, ears of corn, trees. And says Reb Nosson, when the growth starts with a plant? I don't know if anybody knows this, but this is a theme in the writings of Breslev, Rabbi Nachman, Reb Nosson. The seed begins to sprout. The ikar agidol, the primary beginning of the growth process, hu achar, and this is scientifically true, shahagar in, when the seed nisbala ba'aretz, it completely disintegrates into the earth. V'nasa ka'ayin ve'efes, it's gone. The seed rots, it disintegrates into nothing. If you would dig it back up, you couldn't find it. The physicality of it is completely wasted away. And us, in that moment, starts to be growing from it, whether it's trees or whether it's grain of different kinds. And says Reb Nosson, so what does that mean if you think about this deeply? V'al kain, what that means is efsher sheyigdal v'yitzmach shum davar ki im al yidei hazriya ba'aretz daika. That's why you cannot grow anything if we don't plant it in earth, in soil. You cannot plant something in cement. You cannot plant something in an animal. I don't think, at least. You cannot you can't plant something in a human. They used to joke if you swallow a watermelon seed, watermelon starts growing in your stomach. It doesn't work this way. It's got to be in the earth. Why in the earth? Why did Hashem make the teva in that way? Nothing stam. Everything's a lesson, everything's a teaching, everything's so deep. Ki ikar koyach hagidol v'atzameach, as we said before, the primary beginning of the sprouting of this plant, is the aspect of the nullification to Hashem, where the egoic sense of self on the part of the seed withers away, and the seed gives itself up and surrenders itself to emunah, surrenders itself to the earth, which is humility, surrenders itself to the realization that I'm only here to be a vessel for something much greater. And that's what it means, you plant in the earth, because that's how things grow. When they leave their own small little constricted motivations and they allow themselves to access a much broader worldview, a much broader sense of identity, a much broader sense of self. Like I like to say, it's not a lowercase self, it's an uppercase self, right? So we want to have a sense of self, self-confidence, but it's the uppercase, it's the big letter S, self, which is Hashem's self that's shining through each and every one of us. That's self-confidence. Not because each of us little human beings are self-confident. We're nothing. We're here on a mission. And so we plant in the earth, which is an aspect of humility. Because the primary sprouting and growing is this aspect of nullification to Hashem. Is getting rid of the physical element, just like the seed does. Because this is the aspect of a whole new life, of a way of waking up. Uru yeshena mishinaschem, like the shofar tells us, a person slumbers the whole year, and before we're about to go into another year, we wake up, something fresh, you have a new start. It can be a whole new life, a whole new experience of Yiddishkeit, brachas, davening, halachas, tznius. The whole thing is different because it's not a bunch of laws, it's a mission. It's an opportunity to let HaKadosh Baruch Hu into our lives. V'al kain, therefore, Ibn Asim finishes, Yefsher kiyam ha'yidei shezar nagarim ba'aretz. You got to plant it in the earth, because va'aretz b'chinas shiflas. The earth is so humble, it's so lowly. Everybody steps on the earth. The earth is gravity. Pulls everything down. The earth is humility. B'chinas ayin, that aspect of taking the ani and turning it into ayin. V'shamnis bala hagarin, and it's in that place that the seed withers away, because that's the nature of the earth, right? It becomes humble, and so it loses itself. Until it becomes completely nullified, fades away. And nothing remains of it, but the essence of it, the essence of why it is. The premise, the Ratzon that transcends all other Ratzonos. Why am I here, says the seed, so to speak. And it gets rid of everything extraneous. And it focuses in on the essence, what it means to be a neshama, not a guf. And so it then in that moment is connected to the source of infinite power, infinite growth. And then it becomes transformed, rooted in this perspective of knowing that I have a sense of self, so that I can, with my sense of self, become a vessel for the infinite. So that's a whole new life. That's the distinction between one little tiny seed and a gigantic, mighty oak. That's the difference between sleeping our days away while doing everything right, sleeping, and uru yeshena mishinaschem, waking up to a whole new paradigm of what Yiddishkeit might offer us. He finishes, not going to read inside, there's no time, we'll finish now. He finishes by explaining that's why Adam Rishon had to daven for the plants to grow. Because he says that's what tefillah is. Tefillah is anivas, tefillah is humility. A person can learn all the Torah in the world, have a very strong sense of ego, a sense of self. But tefillah means tefillah la'ani kiyatov. Tefillah is associated with the pauper. We come into HaKadosh Baruch Hu realizing I don't have, and I come to ask from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Adam Rishon is able to wake up the seed and all the seeds that are buried in the ground. Through his tefillah, he's able to activate this process of humility, and through that, the seeds are able to wither away into the earth, take root, and begin to grow. Just close the final line over here at the bottom of the page. Everybody knows that the most famous of all the Rashi Tevos, and there are a few, for the month of Elul spells, of course, Ani Lidodi Vidodili, which is shocking, because Okay, we're used to this. But again, like we said before, really the whole month of Tshuva is about fixing ourselves, introspection, find another Rosh Tevos. There are many other Rosh Tevos, but something that is much more focused on fixing, rectifying, trying to complete that which is broken. But that's not what we find in this pasuk. The pasuk is all about relationship. It's not about the details that need fixing and tweaking and chizuk, strength. The pasuk is about v'shavta, that tshuva should be ad Hashem Elokecha, to allow my life to again become a place where Hashem is very real, and that's my mission. And so the Rosh Tevis of this month of Elul is ani l'doidi v'doidi li. That's the essence of tshuva. To know what it really means. Like, why am I doing tshuva? What is this, a game? I'm trying to go ahead and get myself in good shape, so Judgment Day and then Matzah Yantiv, I carry on it. That's not what it is. I want to change my life. I want to live for real, to really grow like this tree. And how beautiful, that coded into this pasuk, these 4 words, Shir Hashirim, ani l'doidi v'doidi li, is this idea of exactly what we're attempting to do in the month of Elul. Where is God? His intention? Wherever you let Him in, your intention. So, ani l'doidi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm taking my ani and I'm giving it back to you. I'm turning it into ayin. Ani is l'doidi. I would like to make space in my life. And then, like we learned to the Gemara in Saita, ani esdaka. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ani, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's selfhood comes down into our lives, v'doidi li. And that's the month of Elul. These Yemei Ratzon, before we start a new year, to think in our minds, what kind of year do I want to have? And to think so much bigger than just the particular areas that I want to improve here, I want to improve there. Okay, but why? Why? Think much more deeply. What does it mean to be a Jew? What does it mean to be a person that's aligned with halacha? What is our goal? What's our job? What does it mean to be a kohen or kohenes? What does it mean to be a person that recognizes that life is a shlichus? Life is a mission. Hashem should bless us that we should utilize this month to think deeply about these things, can meditate, on these ideas, think about them very deeply, and in so doing, I think it'll supercharge our Rosh Hashanah davening, which is all about the Malchus of Hashem, as well as the Aseret Tshuva, as well as Yom Kippur, on to Sukkot and beyond. What an exciting period of time! We should all be zeicha in the schus of the tzaddikim whose words we merited to learn tonight, to aksiva v'chasima taiva gut geben shiur. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for